Whoa, what's going on? Let's talk about product ownership management. Let's talk about product ownership and management. Welcome, welcome. I'm going live very impromptu, but I thought, why not put this out there and see if there's any kind of interest around it. But welcome, welcome. As you're coming in, hit the like button, share, subscribe. I'm just going to basically go through like a crash course in product ownership. If you don't know what product ownership is, it's basically for the most part these days, it's IT role. It's a potential IT role, but you can also have the same position in other types of industry. So today, in particular, I will probably talk a little bit about in healthcare. So welcome, welcome. Hit the like button. This is a quick crash course on product ownership, and this is a quick crash course on product ownership. But first of all, what is product ownership? Actually, first of all, my name is Ola. Welcome back to my Empire Pro. So this is going to be an extremely valuable session for you. Just in case you're finding yourself here by mistake, you've come here for real estate, digital marketing. This is all linked together. This is an effort to help you make money. It's about to make you create a career out of the environment that we're in these days. We're in the digital environment, so the more you sharpen your skills, the better. Now, for me personally, in recent years, I've had to sharpen my skills. I've never really worked a 9 to 5 job ever, so never been in that position. I worked as a one-man mopo for a long time. I do pick up consulting gigs in healthcare every here and there. So this is an opportunity for you to learn another way you can make money out there. So this might just bring up some new ideas for you. You might want to explore it. So if you want to become a product owner, a manager, this is going to be a quick crash course. Okay. So what is a product? A product service. Like a product is basically an offering that you can sell in the marketplace in exchange for money. Um, the product is a product. It's not really a product until it's actually had some kind of value to other people's life. So a product is a product. Coffee is a product. A microphone is a product. A computer is a product. Well, basically tangibles. But these days, a product can also be digital. It could be an app on somebody's phone. It could be a software on somebody's computer. Those are all products. Okay. You buy them one time, you use them over and over again. And sometimes they're also attached to subscriptions. So now with that being said, what is a product owner? A product owner is basically somebody who focuses on what they call the product backlog. So a product backlog is something, if I continue to do this, product backlog is something you will see that will come up a lot, right? Another terminology that you might see will come up a lot is the user story. But let me just go ahead and read the definition I have here first. A product owner basically focuses on the product backlog, ensuring that user stories are well defined and prioritized. Okay. User stories. No, I'm sure that was going to create another questions. What are user stories? I'm going to talk about that in a second. I promise you, just hang on to that. Okay. It's very important that you know what a product backlog is and what user stories are if you want to become a product owner or a product manager. Okay. All right. And sometimes you will see it also being used interchangeably as PO in certain documentations. A PO is a product owner. A PM might be a project manager. It might be a product manager. Okay. And those are two different things, but they can be linked together. Depends on what industry you find yourself. So again, product owners are typically they are more execution oriented and work closely with development teams. So those are already three terminologies, phrases that you might see come up a lot. If we continue to talk about this, a product backlog, we'll talk about that in a second. User stories, we'll talk about that in a second. And also we have another third terminology phrase here, development teams. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second as well. Okay. Just in case I don't get to that, development team are basically people that are coding, that are building the actual product, the people that are working on the technical features of a product, the actual people that are actually working on the technical features that are designing it and actually helping to create the product. So in a digital world, you're talking about coders, people that are actually programming the behind the scenes functionalities of a software. Those will be people you call the development team. So the product owner is not necessarily involved. As a matter of fact, they're not supposed to be involved in the actual development of the features of a product. All right, so that's product owner. Now you have product manager. Okay, a product manager is very similar to product owner, but let me just put it simply like this. Oftentimes, product owners are reporting to a product manager. Okay, so now according to this definition here on my paperwork, they are responsible for the overall product strategy and vision. So every product you put out there, either as a product owner or a product manager or the actual entrepreneur behind the creation or the creative behind the creation of the product, or the creator, I should say, right? Every product has a vision. There's a vision behind the product. Well, should have a vision, right? Not every product has a vision, but it should have a vision. Okay. If it doesn't have a vision, then we got problems. Okay. Then we got problems, because that means, you don't have a direction. And sadly, most products that are created probably don't have a vision. It's probably somebody's idea, and then they start working on it. And before you know it, they end up in the marketplace. No one is interested. Okay, so all of that goes into the initiation of the product, a vision, right? So the person responsible for the overall vision of a product is essentially the product manager. It could be the product owner. It just simply depends on the it depends on the size of the organization we're talking about. Sometimes it's just the creator, the entrepreneur, the owner of the business. Okay, so the product manager in a fairly mid to large scale operation is responsible, or project, I should say, project is responsible for the overall product strategy and vision. All right, so we can also refer to them as PMs. Just keep in mind, a PM could be a project manager. A project manager and product manager, they are two different things. Okay, so PMs handle market research. Okay, if you followed me long enough in digital marketing here, we've done market research. So the PM handle market research, customer discovery, aligning the product with business goals. Okay, the business goals, meaning how are we going to make money with this? So the PM is also is the one responsible for managing the product life cycles from ideation to release, from the idea to this actually being used in the marketplace. Okay, so now with that being said, as a product owner, as a product manager, you're the one basically responsible for a project behind the creation of a product. Okay, so we're going to focus on digital products like apps, like softwares, or things like that, or maybe web-based softwares or websites, maybe by extension websites, right? Or a web portal, right? So mobile solutions, right? Mobile solutions also have, for the most part, product owners and product managers behind driving the vision of the product from ideation to release into the marketplace. Okay, so but how do they track success? You have to understand how they track success, right? There's quite a few ways they can track success, but I'm not going to get too much into the technicalities. Again, this is just a teaser. If this is something you're interested in, I'll be able to tell with the numbers, and then we'll get deeper and deeper into it. But like I said, in the past 2 years or so, I decided to engage some. So there's something called a certified Scrum product owner. I am CSPO certified. I am also POPM certified, which is the Safe Agile framework version of, product owner, product manager. So I decided to pick those up in the last few years, along with PMP, project manager professional. Okay, project management professional, PMP. So these are basically world-class certifications for all these different roles. So if you want to become a project manager, you definitely want to pick that up. Now, I've managed multiple projects over the last 15 to 18 years without this certification, but I also had a master's degree in engineering management. So it only made sense that I take up this stuff. So that's some of the stuff I'm sharing with you right now. Okay. So if you're in real estate, you're managing projects. Okay. So these are some of the things you want to pay attention to. Anyway, so to track and measure the success of a product, okay, or the creation of a product, you should understand the following. There's something we call the key performance indicators. I mean, you would find this in any industry, right? But what are the key performance indicators? Sometimes you will hear people say KPIs. What are the key performance indicators when it comes to driving a product vision and strategy from ideation to release? There is a metric here. They call it the customer satisfaction, or CSAT. Sometimes they also call it or use it interchangeably. They might be different now. I need to clarify this. They might use interchangeably what they call the Net Promoter Score, NPS. So that's one. Another one is called the customer retention rate. If you follow my lead in digital marketing, you've seen me say that before, or what they call the churn rate. Is basically the rate at which customers are abandoning the use of your product, right? Or vice versa, retention rate, customer retention rate. There's also something called the daily active users, the DAUs, or monthly active users. So, for example, you will hear people say about 3 billion users on the internet on a daily basis. That's just the whole internet. But how many users does YouTube have on a daily basis, right? I think 3 million. I might be behind on that. I need to update myself on that. But anyway, daily active users is another way to measure the success of a product, okay? Not the product vision, but the product itself, the success of the product. Another way to measure the success of a product is feature adoption rate, okay? So in Scrum or Agile framework, there's when you're creating a product, right? You focus on releasing them in iterations, working on the features of the product in iterations, right? So you don't try to release everything, but you basically focus on functionalities and releasing them in phases as opposed to completing the whole project the way you might complete the whole project if you were building a bridge 150 years ago, right? So that's the difference between the Agile framework, or what they call Scrum, which is one of the frameworks of Agile, one of the Agile frameworks out there. If you want to see, I'm thinking, because I got to make sure I get this right, right? You release them in phases, right? You release those features in phases, and that's one of the characteristics that makes it Agile. You don't focus on the completion of the whole product, but on each functionality. And being able to do that is what I'll probably be able to define that before I finish this session a little bit more appropriately. But that's the idea. So when you hear feature adoption rate, that's just a feature, right? So a product might have a microphone knob, right? The microphone can still be tested without the knob. Or maybe, you might have a car, right? You can still drive a car without the doors to the car, right? The doors are features, right? The fact that you can actually have a dashboard can also be another feature. Parts of the dashboard can be a feature, right? So just keep in mind that when you're creating a product, it has features to them, right? So those features can be attributed to, I guess, benefits, but the features are actually the functionalities of the product. So feature adoption rate is another way that you can measure. It's one of the few ways you can measure the success of a product. And also you can measure it by the overall revenue growth, right? Or what we call customer lifetime value. If you followed me for a few years, I've talked about average customer value. I've talked about customer lifetime value or lifetime customer value. They're all very similar. Might be different, depends on the number of years an average customer stays, or an average user will be using your product. All right. So again, we have the KPI. So everything I just said are all grouped under key performance indicators. It depends on what the goal and objectives of your products are, right? We also have what they call the OKRs, objectives and key results. Okay. And the description I have here says goal setting framework that ensures alignment with the company's mission. Okay. A lot of people just create products in isolation from the rest of the marketplace, or a company vision or context of the particular cultural, I guess, features of the location. That's a problem. If you notice, even up down to cars, right? There are certain cars that you will see a different version of the car in different countries. You have to pay attention to the localities of where the products are actually going to be used, and certain governmental, maybe compliance rules and things like that around that product. So those are all the context that we all need to pay attention to if you are working as a product owner or a product manager. So again, how does your product actually align with the overall company vision? In order to measure that, you have to pay attention to what they call the objectives and key results. Another one, if you've been following me here because of digital marketing, I've talked about this, called the A/B testing. We probably more so call it A/B split testing. Okay. It's basically the testing of two or more versions of a product feature, okay, to measure which performs better. In content creation, we do test different parts of, we test the different features of a video. The thumbnail, we test one thumbnail against the other. So it's very, very similar. What's going on, Raymond? Good to see you again, man. We're talking about product ownership and product management today. So there's another career lane you might choose to go. Okay. That's easily attainable just by getting some certification and just learning some of the skills. All right. So let's keep going. So so we have A/B split testing, which is the testing of two or more versions of a product feature to measure which performs better. Okay. So now let's get a little bit deeper. Remember, I told you I was going to come back to product backlogs, right? Because earlier on, I defined a product owner as a person who focuses on the product backlog, ensuring that user stories are well defined and prioritized. Those are key features of the work of a product owner, well defined and prioritized. So now, what is product backlog? A product backlog is a list of all desired product features, enhancements, yes, bug fixes, and technical debt items. Okay, I might get some time to touch on technical debt items, but let's just focus for now. That's what product backlog is. It's just a list, right? Now, there are tools to manage those lists, like tools like Jira out there. There's another one I can think of, but the one I use is Jira. But Jira is probably the most popular to manage the features of a product, right? And basically how they are being worked on in collaboration with development team, with a scrum master or project manager, right? So those are the teams that you will probably encounter in a scrum team, right? A product manager, product owner, project manager, or agile scrum master, and the development team. Okay. Now, all of that will depend on what organization you're working for. Okay. But those are the core team members or stakeholders. There might be external and internal stakeholders beyond the team that's working on the product. So just keep that at the back of your mind. Okay. Now, what are user stories? I also promised I was gonna come and define what user stories are. User stories are basically they're basically write-ups that describes a feature of a product, right? From an end user's standpoint, from an end user's perspective. Okay. So user stories might start as a user, I want to accomplish a goal, right? So that I can accomplish like that. So as a user, as a user of a feature, something like that. But you start as a user, as a user, I want to whatever the goal is, and then so that I can whatever the benefit is. Okay. As a user of this microphone, right? I want a knob so that I can control the volume of the audible being produced by the microphone, something like that. But that's the idea. Okay. So it depends on the product, right? But that's the structure of how you write a user story. Okay. So now let's talk about something they call the backlog grooming or refinement. So you have a backlog, right, which is a list of the desired product features. So now you have to make sure they're well defined, but you also have to prioritize them in order of, I guess, importance. All right. So the process of doing that is what they call the backlog grooming or refinement. The definition here goes: a regular process where the product owner works with the team to ensure. So you're working as a team always. That's in Scrum and Agile in general. You're always working. Teamwork is a big deal. Okay. So if we have the opportunity in the future, if you guys give me the opportunity in the future, you want to hear more about this, I will sharpen up my ability to deliver this, and then we'll get better at it, okay, together. All right. So backlog grooming and refinement is a regular process where the product owner works with the team to ensure the backlog is up to date and stories are well defined. Remember, well defined, well clearly and well defined and prioritized, right? So well defined and prioritization of the backlog is the job of a product owner and or product management, okay, or manager, okay. The product manager is more so again driving the product vision and strategy, and depending on the skill of the organization, they might have product owners reporting to them. So now in interviews, if you want to use this, for the most part you will basically get a 9 to 5 job. In interviews they might ask you what are prioritization techniques, okay. There are a few prioritization techniques out there. The most popular of them is what they call the WSJF, the weighted shortest job first. The weighted, as in weight, right? Weighted shortest job first. The weighted shortest job first. WSJF. Sorry, WSJF. All right. And what it does is that it combines the urgency and the value. So you're actually going to weight the value of each one of these features, and then you prioritize them based on weight of the weight that is been assigned to it by the team, right? During a Scrum team ceremony. Okay, we're not talking about Scrum here today, so I won't get into the ceremony, right? Just keep an eye on what I just said. Okay, a lot of them will revisit them with time. Okay, but the idea is that you have a team and they have ceremonies. They call them ceremonies. They're basically like meetings, right? That they have from time to time. There are different versions of the meetings, right? So um so you have in those meetings, right? So you have they call this the Scrum, right? In those Scrum team ceremonies, there are some of them that you do on a daily. They call that one of them daily stand up, and then you have some other ones where you're actually starting the feature from the end of the feature to the end of it, right? The planning of it and to actually reviewing it. So you have planning, you have review, you have a few of them. I will touch them properly later on, okay? But part of the techniques, I'm talking about the techniques for prioritization right now. One of them, the most popular I've seen, is the WSJF, weighted shortest job first, meaning the one that's easier to handle. You handle that first, you prioritize them based on how easy it is to, because the idea is to create an achievement as fast as humanly possible, and then it gets better and better, and then it can get bigger. Okay, so again, it combines the urgency and the value often used in safe skilled agile framework. So if you hear me say safe, it means skilled agile framework. Some other ones are called the one is called Moscow, which is must have, should have, could have, won't have. It's must have, so you basically you're prioritizing the feature based on, do we have to have this? Okay, we can have it. It's nice to have, like that. They also prioritize even issues in ticketing. When you come to ticketing issues like fixing bugs and issues in product release, they also prioritize them sometimes based on that. They prioritize them based on nice to have must have, right? So, for example, in healthcare, there are some features that will basically anything that will mess with patient care will become highest priority, and everything is just oh, it'd be nice to have this color on this part of the screen, and then that becomes a like, could have been nice to have, you know. So, MOSCO is essentially a way to an acronym to must have, should have, could have, right? Won't have. Moscow is spelled MOSCOW. Okay, another one is value versus effort matrix. It weighs the impact of a feature against the development effort. Okay, so some features are just too much versus the overall vision of the product. Some people are, okay, let's push that on the back burner, or don't worry about that for now, right? So the idea is to release features features as fast as possible in phases. Okay, another one here that actually I've never seen before is called the Kano model. It prioritizes based on customer delight and satisfaction. Okay, now as you can see, I was butchering agile methodology and Scrum. Sorry, I said Scrum. Scrum framework earlier on. But let's talk about it. I wanted you guys to see how raw this is as I'm getting through this as well. Okay. But agile methodology is it focuses, like I said earlier, on iterative development of the features of a product. Okay. The benefits, you get quick feedbacks. Okay. You get quick feedback cycles as you're developing product, you're creating success and bugs. And then you get the feedbacks faster, and then you can fix them, and then you get through those phases. Another benefit is the flexibility in adapting to changing environments. For example, in software, you can't wait until you finish building the whole thing before you test out the features. Kind of like something you have to do when you're building a bridge 150 years ago, right? Today it's a little bit different. So you have to be able to test those features and get some quick feedbacks as fast as humanly possible. And the agile methodology makes that possible. And one of the frameworks in the agile methodology is Scrum. Okay. And then also when it comes to Scrum, there's also something we call the scaled agile framework. That's another framework, SAFe. So I'm certified with SAFe, POPM. Okay, which is more enterprise level as opposed to the CSPO, which is Certified Scrum Product Owner. So I'm actually certified in both. Yes, you have to do an exam. All right. So Agile methodology and Scrum frameworks. Agile basically focus, like I said. So the Scrum is a popular Agile framework for managing work. The key elements include the sprints. Okay. So the sprints are basically the phases. Okay. The time box development cycles, typically 1 to 4 weeks. I think for each feature. Yeah, I think for each feature. Please correct me if I'm wrong here. Some of my teachers may be watching. All right. So that's one right there. Boom, boom, boom. So it focuses on iterative development. Okay. That's the Agile. But the Scrum is actually an Agile framework. So Agile is the methodology. A framework in Agile is Scrum. Another one is SAFe. Okay. SAFe is scaled Agile frameworks used more at an enterprise level. So as I was saying, some of the key elements in Scrum is sprints. These are time-boxed development cycles. And then you also have the sprint planning I was saying earlier on. And then you have the daily stand-up. Okay. The sprint planning, back to sprint planning, it's a meeting where the product owner works with the team to plan the work for the next sprint. Okay. So the next sprint is 1 to 4 weeks, like I said, but there's a daily stand-up, which is I think about 15 minutes. And basically, this is a meeting where you assess the progress and identify the blockers. Okay. What did you do yesterday? What do you plan to do today? And what are the blockers? What are some of the things that might be obstacles from accomplishing your daily work? So those are some of the things that are discussed. But let's just keep it overall. You don't have to define exactly, but the idea is a daily meeting where you assess progress and you're identifying blockers. Two major things. You are assessing progress of the sprint. Okay, the present sprint you're in the middle of, and then identifying blockers. All right, another element in Scrum, the fourth element is the sprint review and retrospective. Okay, as it says, is basically opportunity to reflect on the work that is going on. So you get to review completed work, and then you identify improvements for the next sprint. Okay, work is done. Okay, you review the completed work, and then you identify improvement for the next sprint. Okay, this might sound like, well, obviously, well, if you don't put them down in writing, you have people creating products all over the place. People have ideas for days, but they don't execute them properly. Okay, you can ask me, I'm speaking from experience. You have ideas, you start multiple different things, but they keep crashing and burning. You might even make some money like me, but they're not sustainable because you don't have structures written down around them. Part of the way you create structure around this product creation, from ideation to release, is having team members that actually coordinate step by step. Part of them being a product owner or a product manager. Of course, the development team are working on it. So if you are the same person that you are playing the product owner, the product coordinator, project coordinator, the product management, and the development team at the same time, I understand it's costly to have a team, but it's tough. It's tough because you're basically most likely going to be shooting yourself on the legs more often than not. Again, I'm speaking from experience. Okay. That's specifically why I just hired 4 people and replaced the one person with 4 people. Okay. Because again, the idea here is to have a structure around product development, and making sure you're measuring success, because SMART goals require specific, measurable, attainable, right? I think reachable, I guess, but trackable, I guess. Smart goals means, bottom line here is you're measuring it. Okay, you're measuring time bound. Okay, you want to be able to measure success and see it all the way till the end. Oftentimes, we get in our own way when we try to play everything. Okay, so a product owner actually makes 6 figures or more. 6 figure or more is the average salary you will see out there. Project management, a project manager can make somewhere around $150,000 a year. A product owner can make somewhere around 90 to probably 120. Depends on what industry, depends on where you're located in the world, of course, right? All right. So another thing that I want us to talk about. So again, product owner, product management only comes to play when we're dealing with agile methodology. Okay, for the most part. So in projects that is not agile, that is not using agile methodology, you probably will have a business analyst. Okay, a business analyst who is a person who is basically measuring success and looking for opportunities for improvement in trackable ways. Okay, in basically measurable and quantifiable ways. Okay, both from a quantity and quality standpoint. Okay, sorry, I meant to say both from a quantifiable and a qualitative standpoint. Okay, we can talk about that later on too, but right now let's just focus on the Scrum framework, which is again a type of agile framework, agile methodology. Okay, it's one of the frameworks in the agile methodology. All right, so now let's get into this. So you have a roadmap, right? You have a vision, a product vision, and then you have what we call a product roadmap. Okay, it's a high level visual summary of the product vision. All right, so you can see you have a product vision, but you put it on paper and you can see what the features are, the timelines, the goals, right? And that's what we call the roadmap. So the roadmap basically aligns the internal team, basically the developers, like I said earlier on, but also potentially sales and marketing team if you're the product manager, right? And then there's also some external stakeholders. Who are those? There's people outside of the organization or outside of the immediate development team. Sometimes there are also government compliance and stuff like that. Um, that may be stakeholders, external stakeholders, depending. Like for example, in healthcare, you will have compliance, you might have IT compliance and things like that involved. So those people might be involved in in making sure of the execution of the product vision. Okay, But that on paper, putting all that together on a paper as a high level summary is what we call the product roadmap. Okay. Now, I just mentioned stakeholder, right? So there's definitely a need to manage stakeholder. So stakeholder management is a big part of project management, right? It's actually a major part of product of product and project management, all right? But particularly project management, right? So the same is true for product management, right? Product ownership and product management. So you will have to manage stakeholders basically in terms of relating with them. Yes, a real life relationship, communications, and things like that. Because why? Because they have expectations. Okay. So balancing the needs and expectations of different stakeholders, such as executives, right? Users, developers, is key. Okay. So communication, yes, is also a big part in all of this. All right. How well are we doing? All right. So yeah, communication is going to be a big deal in terms of stakeholder management. So, and when I say communication, I mean communication skills. Okay. There's another aspect to this. Again, I told you this is a crash course. This is just to go over some of the things you need to learn if you want to become a product owner or project management or product manager. Okay. User experience and customer feedback. Okay. So the experience, because at the end of the day, when you have a product, so let's say you have this bottle or you have this my very fancy microphone. Let me use the broken one, the red one. So you have this microphone, right? You have this microphone right here. The user experience should be more of your concern more than the actual products. You see, but that's the same thing I know. But actually, it's not necessarily the same thing. The actual experience that they're having, okay, as they use your product or as they use your software or your app, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So managing the user experience actually starts from the designing of the user experience. So another short, um, the designing of the user interface. Okay, so where is this microphone? Where's the knob? Where do you place the knob? Where do you place the stand? There's this stand. So for example, for the Yeti microphone, this is called the Yeti microphone. Something I've noticed, the reason why this is broken is because when I move this is part of this. So this is an example of experience. When I move this back and forth like this, there's a place here, there's a slot here for the cable, right? So when I was moving this, actually it broke the cable, right? That's a bad user experience. So now I do like the product of using this microphone. Okay. I do like the end product, which is a good sound, right? Like a good sound. I like it, right? But then, as much as I like the end product, the experience that led to it can do better, right? So, user experience is something to pay attention to if you're going to be a product owner, a product manager, right? So, what is the experience of your users? Is it bad, good, somewhere in between? You can use improvement. That's what we call the UX. So, if you ever see UX anywhere, UX is going to be a major keyword in your interviews, in your what do you call this thing? The resumes, right? Sometimes you might see it used interchangeably as UI. UI stands for user interface. It's essentially the actual features, the physical features or the digital features that you're touching, but that's what's creating the user experience. So that is a big deal when it comes to product ownership and product management. Okay. So the UX UI design, product managers work closely with the UX and UI teams to ensure that user experiences align with product goals. Okay. So, as you can imagine, a bad user experience can result in a high churn rate or a low retention rate of your product, right? So, how? There's something called user research, okay, which is basically the collecting of qualitative and quantitative insights from users to validate product direction. And some of the techniques that they use are surveys. Yes, good old survey, like actually having people test it, right? and test. People test beauty supplies, they test beauty stuff. You can go to actually you can go to some companies and you can see that they have outlets where they can actually test beauty supplies, right? And they collect surveys to see what the experiences are like. Those are some of the processes that goes into that. So one of the people that can facilitate that in collaboration with the UX and UI team is a product manager. Okay. So it's basically usability testing. Okay. And there's actually another technique called usability testing. And then also you can use interviews. Okay. All right, so that's that. That's that real quick. That's like a quick crash course, okay? That I wanted to bring you up to speed with. If you ever decide that you want to take up, I do have the plug. If you want to take up trainings, elaborate training, you want to get certified, and you want to dive in a little bit deeper on this is another angle you can come into IT without necessarily having an IT degree. Okay, so here's a quick recap. Backlog prioritization is essentially how you prioritize features and technical debt. Okay, so there might be features you can catch up to and you're falling behind. You can create what they call the technical debt in the product backlog. Okay, so pay attention to that. Then, like I said earlier on, everything about this is about measuring and tracking success. So some of the success metrics I shared with you earlier on falls under the category of KPIs or the OKRs, objectives and key results. Okay. And like I said, you're managing relationship and you're managing expectations of key stakeholders, internal and external. And so some conflict resolution skills can come in handy when you're dealing with team and stakeholders. Okay, so pay attention to that. Also, I talked about the roadmap, the product vision, and the roadmap. Basically, a high level representation or summary of how you're going to bring this product to life from start ideation to release, but even beyond to testing in the marketplace. Okay, then also something you can pay attention to when you're dealing with human beings, there will be challenges. So there's something called the sprint challenges that you might need to manage. How do you handle, like I said, conflict, communication, smooth communication? How do you make sure that you're communicating effectively if sprints are falling behind in terms of the goals? That's something to pay attention to. And like I said earlier on, I mentioned technical debt is basically balancing the need for new features and managing the reality of what is actually being coming to fruition, coming to life. Okay, so you have to balance the need for new features and managing what you're falling behind on, which we call the technical debt. Okay, because stakeholders might show up and they say, "Hey, we want this today," and there might be external stakeholder that's pressurizing them, and then they pressurize you. That's some of the things that you can have some skills around when it comes to this. And of course, a customer feedback loop. All right, so let me see if there's anything else I can cover here. So a quick summary, but that's a quick crash course. Okay, that's a quick crash course. So an example of an industry you might find yourself in, let's say like supply chain, right? Warehouses. What do I mean by warehouses? Let's say like Amazon warehouse. You ever work at the Amazon warehouse before? Well, I used to work at FedEx a long time ago. I worked at FedEx. I was a courier driver at FedEx for 6 years. And that means I had earlier on, way before there were smartphones, they had like their little smart hand device. Oh, I remember that. Let me see. I don't know if I can show you a picture, but anyways, like a little square-ish scanner thing. I forgot what we called them back then, but I guess just call them a scanner. That's how we scan the packages, and basically what tracks the movement of packages starting from pickup to delivery. Okay, long before Amazon became a household name. Yes, I worked with FedEx as a courier between the year 2000 and 2006. Okay, I was actually a handler in 1999. So I worked with them for a total of 7 years. Why am I talking about that right now? Supply chain, where they use smart devices to scan stuff. These days, there might be smartphones, there might be an actual iPhone with a scanner on top of it. In healthcare, these are actually stuff that we have to support, right? the scanners at the top of it, and there are softwares inside of the scanners that clinicians, nurses on the floor of a hospital or in OR, in operating departments, operating rooms, where they're actually scanning devices and they're scanning patients or they're scanning documents to keep track of patient movement and equipment uses, medication usages and things like that. They're tracking all those things by scanning all those things. The softwares that are scanning those things are actual products that are being sold at enterprise levels, millions of dollars exchanging hands. Some of that coming into your hands, potentially as a product owner, as a product manager, if you can help design good software, mobile application products that those companies can actually sell to those large organizations. Okay, so there's actual software that actually leverages what they call the Oracle Cloud and database solutions to track movement of supplies around the nations. So they call them supply chain management. Okay, so you might not have paid attention to how these things are tracked. The same thing is done in retail. How do you track all those products on those shelves? How does the inventory? So long ago, back in 1998, I used to work for Macy's, and there's a special night, maybe once every month. They say if you want extra hours, you can come and work, and they do inventory, right? To keep track of what they call the inventory. They're scanning all those things and taking account. These days is a lot more easier if you have the right mobile solutions. So you don't have to run to the computer to enter anything. Everything is being entered in real time and being stored in the cloud. Why? Because of successful execution of good digital products that end up on those mobile solutions. All right. So, case in point. So, I said supply chain management, right? There's also something called enterprise resource planning software, right? The ERP. So, those are some of the domains where you might find the skills as a product owner or product manager useful, right? It's called the ERP planning. There's also another one called so a type of ERP is the Oracle Cloud. Okay, it's a cloud-based suite of applications. I'm reading a cloud-based suite of applications for managing business operations. This tool specifically involves supply chain modules. There you go. Okay, supply chain modules. So they also have a software out there called what's the name of this thing? The Salesforce, right? So Salesforce is also very popular. If you know Salesforce and you can learn Salesforce, there's a ton of YouTube videos on how Salesforce work. These are softwares that are being used to manage inventories, to manage sales, marketing, and tracking everything from ideation all the way to sales of a product, and how they interchange, even everything up to even managing staff and managing payroll and everything like that. Um, all of them are linked together. Sometimes they are linked together. There's different multiple applications linked together by way of what they call the API, right? I think application programming interface, right? You don't need to know how they work or know how to design them. You just need to understand the concept. So there are too many things linked together with APIs, with different other types of interfaces. Like, for example, you know that there's going to be refrigerators that will be communicating with your remote control in your house, in a smart home. These are different roles where product owners and product managers will be very useful, and they're going to keep hiring people and paying them six figures. So that's it. So this particular example I'm giving is actually in healthcare. Is basically interface between ERPs, enterprise resource planning. Resource meaning the resources that are being used. So, for example, in an OR setting, operating room setting, they have equipment, right, that they're using. They have medications, and they have to plan how they use and charge for them. How do they track how they're being used? Because they will charge for them, and they will charge the patient or the insurance companies for the usage of all these resources. Part of the resources is the actual clinician, the doctor, the surgeon, right? They're tracking the use of all those things and charging for them. How do they do that? Effortlessly in real time by designing mobile solutions that will be delivered to the marketplace in real time, in good time, based on market demands, right? They have to track everything from the business value down to your time value, right? Maybe you charge 40, 50, $60 an hour. They need to track all of that. How? By designing mobile applications successfully. So they're all linked together essentially. Okay. So in this example, an example of your day-to-day responsibility will be to ensure that the features developed for the mobile applications are integrating properly between an ERP system. Remember, enterprise resource planning system, like a cloud-based system, like a Salesforce system, making sure that they are interfacing, because sometimes you have organizations use multiple softwares for multiple reasons. They might like this for reporting reasons, they like the other one because of the interface, and so they are creating like conglomerate of different software to create. So understanding that many software will interface together, but making sure that the features that and how they interface are developed properly can be part of your responsibilities, right? Not by doing it, but by tracking the successful integration, creation, integration, and testing of these different features. Features, backlog refinement, managing the features, right? That's something you want to pay attention to. So, like I said, the ERP is the ERP. That's the software. Then it's called supply chain management. We'll use ERPs for smooth supply chain management. That's all I have for you guys today. Let me know if you like this. If you want more of it, hit the like button, share, subscribe, turn up your notifications. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.